Norway didn't start off with much at the beginning, but they hit the jackpot in the North Sea and got super rich beyond their wildest dreams. It must be simple to explain Norway's prosperity, right? Norway was one of the world's wealthier nations in the past. Sure, their wealth could never approach that of the United States or Great Britain, but it has long been richer and more developed than most of the world's nations. How did their location and climate improve the economy? What triggered their immense growth? How has their control over oil affected international relations? All of these questions will be answered as we unpack the development of this notorious Scandinavian country. Back in the 1860s and 70s, Norway was struggling to survive when the Industrial Revolution started to change the European continent. Severe winters made farming difficult, and the terrain made travel, education, and information sharing difficult. Like a helping hand from nature, Norway has benefited greatly from its location on the earth in numerous ways. The nation is endowed with abundant natural resources. They must be born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Rich fishing chances have been offered by the nation's icy seas for generations, and this trend is still going strong now. Even though Lofoten is a popular tourist destination, the local economy still depends heavily on the fishing sector. The vast majority of the domestic power supply there is also derived from water. It used its rivers and fjords to generate natural electricity before oil was found. Currently, about all of its energy demands are met by hydropower. Even with the harsh winters, agriculture has consistently been significant. Naturally though, Norway's fortunes took a dramatic turn when an even more precious resource was found submerged. Norway was relatively poor at the beginning of the 20th century. Their economy was mostly dependent on the ocean and its merchant marine fleet. Now let's watch the chaos unfold, as the North Sea's oil discovery in 1969 was undoubtedly the catalyst for their economic expansion. It seems like they struck gold. It has gained distinction for being among the richest nations in the planet. In 2020, they came in at number 4 on the list. Actually, up until 1990, it had a GDP per capita of around $30,000, which is almost similar to that of its neighbours. After 1990, it reached $80,000, much higher than its Scandinavian neighbours. Way to go, Norway! According to the World Bank's most recent figures, trade accounts for 71% of its GDP, indicating a relatively open economy. Historically, the nation imports high-tech goods and exports goods with high energy content. It is the globe's second largest exporter of fish, natural gas, and oil, ranking amongst the top 20. Over 60% of all exports are made up of petroleum-based oils and gases. They found a place in the sun. Over time, the Norwegian economy has shown itself to be resilient. This is mostly due to its business-friendly legislation and the corporate sector's adaptability and flexibility. Norway has been on the up and up. Actually, it manages its large oil and gas income for the good of society at large. It was the world's 14th largest oil exporter in 2018, with daily oil exports of 1.2 million barrels. For example, Angola exports 1.4 million barrels of oil, which is a significant amount, but they still lack Norway's level of sovereign wealth. In 2020, Norway accounted for about 75% of the Nordic primary energy production. The output of the other nations ranged from 13 to less than 0.5%. It appears that natural resources are not the only thing required to build a prosperous nation there. How could that be? Maybe lawmakers made a wise decision, or maybe it was simply luck. If you like this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. In the past, the Netherlands discovered a massive natural gas deposit near Groningen in 1959. Major oil firms like Shell, Esso, and Chevron were interested in exploring the North Sea for oil and gas as a result. The maritime borders between Norway, Denmark, and Great Britain were not yet established. However, a few years later, in 1965, they did come to an agreement on the division of the North Sea, based on the concept of equidistance, which places the borders exactly halfway between the two nations. For countries, defining borders is like choosing a candy from a candy jar. You never know what you're gonna get. But things may have gone differently in this situation. The Norwegian Channel may have been the final destination for Norway's border. This is a lengthy trench in the ocean bottom off its southern coast, implying that Denmark's share of the North Sea would have been substantially larger. At the time, Denmark was negotiating its sea boundaries with Germany and was keen on applying the equidistance concept. Therefore, it seems sense that they approach Norway in the same way. This is the point at which luck becomes crucial. The business Phillips Petroleum discovered a massive oil and gas deposit in the North Sea beneath the ocean floor around Christmas 1969. Ekofisk would be the name of this reserve. This occurred just outside the recently established border of Norway. Fat chance? No. Sadly, it lacked the industry and technology necessary to extract oil from the ocean floor at the time. Hence, it depended on foreign businesses to carry out the task of finding and drilling for oil. Therefore, how could it ensure that the oil wealth would benefit Norwegians directly, rather than sending all of the oil cash abroad while foreign businesses handled the real labour of discovering and producing the oil? Let's see how they turn this sour situation into a sweet victory. The lawmakers there made a pretty astute move in the beginning when they established the 10 Oil Commandments. These 10 guidelines outlined how Norway was to set up its oil production. What a tough decision to make. They must have scratched their heads hard to find a solution. In order to bring the oil up, they had to create their own business, develop their own technologies, and give the government there a major role in administering the oil resources. Because producing the oil was the main objective, businesses there like Statoil and Norsk Hydro progressively took possession of the foreign corporations, allowing Norway to retain a large portion of the oil money. Since they began creating their own technologies for oil discovery and extraction in the 1970s and beyond, these massive global businesses are now searching for oil and gas all over the world. They must be on a roll now. Norway has a long history of democracy and has been blessed with honest leaders who have always placed the good of the nation above their own interests. It has thus been able to maintain an even path and adhere to the 10 Oil Commandments, ensuring that the oil earnings was for its people and not for foreign interests, in contrast to corrupt politicians who only had their personal goals in mind and allowed private corporations to establish the terms of business. They did a bang-up job, right? The majority of oil revenue was invested back into the oil business during the 1970s and 1980s to create new infrastructure, technologies, and areas of the seafloor to investigate, beginning to have more money than they could spend, as they had to make fewer of these investments, and as oil earnings increased. The establishment in 1990 of the Norwegian Oil Fund, currently known as the Government Pension Fund Global, marked a great change for the Norwegian economy. They jumped through the hoops, those Norwegian people. The Heritage Savings and Trust Fund, which is now in place in Alberta, Canada, served as inspiration for the creation of this fund. This fund's purpose is to act as a long-term savings strategy and financial safeguard for next generations. It's like a rainy day fund. In 1996, it made its initial contribution to the Government Pension Fund. Additionally, its market worth was around $23 billion in 1998. And by 2020, it had ballooned to a staggering $1.275 billion, ranking among the globe's biggest funds. The globe's biggest sovereign wealth fund persists to be the Norwegian Government Pension Fund. Global data indicates that the fund has $1.38 trillion in assets under management. In order to prepare for the day when the nation must rely less on its supply of fossil fuels, this fund was established to invest government earnings from its enormous deposit of natural gas and oil into industries that are seen to be more sustainable. Seems like they are playing the long game. People there are incredibly wealthy compared to others. This has a remarkable effect on how society there is organised and shaped. The younger generation travels significantly more than their parents and grandparents did, and they also devote a lot more money and time at eateries and bars. They are less likely to lead an extremely basic outdoor life. They are swimming in cash. Actually, we can't ignore the fact that having a small population size played a significant role in such high living standards. It's very simple to attain in an area with greater money and fewer people. Norway has a smaller population than many other nations, with fewer residents demanding to be fed despite its fast expanding population, which is still almost 5 million in 2023. People there must be going on a spending spree now. In addition, people there enjoy a high purchasing power. Due to their high pay rates, they have a lot of money to spend. Compared to Americans, they are wealthier on average and dedicate a lot more on both their standard of life and expenses. They go through money like water. It is also well known across the globe for its cutting-edge educational programs, unique social security system, and free public healthcare. You can see how much people spend when you visit Oslo, which undoubtedly contributes to the city's robust economy. The Nordics are a wonderful illustration of international politics in action. They are related by origins, language, and, for the greatest part, culture. From Finland to Norway and Iceland, relations are cordial and calm. They all live in highly developed nations with excellent standards of living. Seems to be no bitter memories, right? The two greatest instances are Norway and Sweden. What wonderful neighbours. While the latter is a member of the European Economic Area, which is akin to tighter ties to the EU, the former is a member of the EU. Additionally, they are both members of the Nordic Council, which was founded even earlier than the EU to promote collaboration amongst all the Nordic nations. Actually, mutual trust, which is mostly created by cultural links, is the foundation of this partnership. The nation's shared border is more than 1,600 kilometers long. The majority of board movements are not supervised. Every day, some 25,000 individuals travel for business between the two nations. Everything functions without a hitch. Recently, in 2017, Norway made the decision to gift a mountain to Finland in honour of Finland's 100th year of independence. Wow, what a large gift. Sadly, it was hampered by legal issues and never materialised. The Prime Minister asserted that this would go against the indivisible clause of the Norwegian constitution. But what really counts is their intention, isn't that right? Indeed, Norway was lucky. But it would have wasted its riches in oil and gas if past governments hadn't exercised wise long-term planning. In principle, it appears that same long-term planning is still going on nowadays. Regarding the oil and gas industry's future, Norway is not in denial. It is making significant investments in renewable energy technology, such as offshore wind generation, in the hopes of establishing a sizable new sector to meet future global energy demands. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to receive more content. See you in the next video.